Well, good evening. Let's get started. The idea today is to do mostly workshops, a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I want to say just a few words to get us started, a little level setting. So, tonight, teaching team, I'm Lex McCusker. I'm the director of the business plan competition. I think I know all of you. Jim Chung is also here. Jim is the executive director of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And Melanie is in the back. Melanie is the coordinator for social entrepreneurship out of the Center for Civic Engagement and Public Service. All things good and virtuous. So we're here tonight to help you with customer discovery, which is. But first, let me just say congratulations to the 40 semifinalists. We had 105 teams enter. We had panels of 48 judges reviewing those applications, and these are the general entrepreneurship, the social entrepreneurship. We chose 40 out of that group. Very tough competition, I can tell you. We had a long day of after the judges had done all their fine work. We went through them, argued over some of them, hemmed and hawed and held our heads. A lot of good teams didn't get in, to be honest with you, so you should be pleased that you've gotten this far. And congratulations to those finalists. Here's the timeline. Take a minute. In the blue, look back. Let me do that. This is on videotape. In the blue, you see what we finished. So round one submissions went in January 20th, and feedback was announced on the 3rd of February. You are here. We have a series of 3 mandatory workshops. One on customer discovery, another one next week on financial projections, and another one on how to construct a business plan. These are key elements that distinguish this first round from the second round. So second round, you bring a 10-page plan, and you're going to have to up your game a little bit, especially around these areas. And then just for completeness, your next submission is due March 3rd. We farm it out to another panel of judges, get together on the 16th, and decide and announce on the 17th. Okay? That takes the group of 40 down to 10, so it gets tougher. And then on April 14th, we have the final pitch competition.
We're also assigning mentors.
Oh yes, sorry. I know many of you went to the online mentor match event today. This was a new thing for us. I've heard some mixed feedback. I've heard some good feedback. I heard some bad feedback, but that's okay. It was an hour. If we wasted your time, I apologize. I don't think so. I know several folks who feel that they found their soulmate in this chat, so that's a good thing. We won't have matched all of them, so Melanie and Jim and I will spend some time later this week, which is to say tomorrow, finishing up the matching. So you'll hear, ideally by the end of the day on Friday, who we matched you up with. And then it's up to you to make that connection. Not all the matches work, so if you find we've made a mistake and there's no chemistry there, let us know quickly and we'll move on to plan B. Okay. So just to recap, these are the 3 mandatory workshops. I talked about those. There are some others that are scheduled that are open to everyone, which also will be useful. Topics for foreign students who want to do startups. There are several in the semifinals. We'll find it useful. Peter Weissman will give a talk on legal issues. Some of you have IP issues. All of you will have issues about starting your company, how to incorporate. Hopefully you'll have to wrestle with these. It's not too soon to be thinking about those, so save that date. And the effort on 18th is a workshop on how to prepare a pitch deck for investors. That's primarily targeted at the finalists, but clearly it's open to everybody and have good experience. All right. So, topic of today's session is customer development. Start with a question. Why do customer development? Anybody want to offer an answer? Offer a suggestion?
Well, because everybody's going to buy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Find out if there's a market for your product. But first of all, we talk about a practical reason. Here are the criteria for round 2. So those of you who are looking to finish in the money in your contest, appeal to your sense of practicality. These are the criteria that the judges will be judging you on in round 2. This is general entrepreneurship. This is social entrepreneurship. You'll see they're analogous, some changes. Notice that in every one there is explicit weight put on customer development. So that's one of the elements you will be scored on. If you don't do well on this, it will be hard to do well in the competition. I can tell you that from the 40 of you who are in the semifinalists, there were maybe 5 that did a good job on customer development. It was by far the weakest element across the board in the plans. And it's probably the most important thing for a startup. That's what I'm going to try to convince you of in the next 5 minutes before we do it. All right. So, let me ask again, why do customer development? All right, I'll start you off with a teaser then. Let me ask you this, and many of you should know this because we've gone over this. Give me the top reasons why startups fail. Lots of reasons why they fail. What are the top reasons? You in the back, sir.
There was no demand for it in the first place.
No demand for the product. What else?
Teams didn't work out.
Teams don't work out. Ma'am.
Proper research regarding customer needs and development.
Customer needs and development, absolutely. You're all right on target. The other one is they run out of cash. But here's the list. Top reason, no market need. Got that right, a smart group. Right? People who come up, their brilliant idea, their product is not something that anybody wants. The dogs won't eat the dog food. That's the number one reason. There are others. Run out of cash, not the right team, get out competed. So we hit the high ones. The number one is there's no market need. Customer development is the way you find out, verify, determine, validate that there's a market need. Really important. All right. So, key concepts. What's the lean and lean startup? We've been urging you to follow the lean startup method. It's a bit of a religious thing for us. What's the lean and lean? Lean means that you're dealing with uncertainty and scarce resources. We want you to do the cheap, important things first before you invest in building your product, marketing your product, building an organization. That cheap, important thing is your customer development. It's the first thing to do, and it's the most important thing to do. Yes? All right. So, what's a startup? Everybody who's been through the workshops knows this one now. Let's all recite it together. Come on. Startup is a temporary organization in search of a business model, profitable, sustainable, and scalable. So you think you're starting a company, you're not, right? And you got to be humble enough to know that. You are not starting a company, you're finding the business model for a company that will really work. And then you're going to turn that business model into a company. Got it? Now some of you are farther along. You'll tell me, oh, I got revenue, I got customers, I got a company going. And maybe you do. So I'm willing to be wrong on this a little bit. But mostly what you're trying to do is figure out a business model that will work and then turn that into a company sometime down the road. Right? So, in the olden days, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, the notion was a startup was just a small company. You start with your business plan, you write a long business plan, you build your product, beta test it, and put it out in the marketplace. It's not only the old way to do it, it's a wrong way to do it. Proven now over and over again that does not work for startups. It might work very well for Procter & Gamble introducing a new brand of soap, but it's not for a startup. In fact, the difference is because a startup is a temporary organization, you start with the business model, right? And you start with customer development to make sure there's a market for it, and then you maybe build it. Then you go to a minimum viable product. So not even a final product, just something that you can again test in the marketplace. You do that iteratively. It's not one-time deal. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say for the nonprofits or hopeful nonprofits in the room, because some people are still debating their social venture model, don't tune your ears out because basically you're following everything Lex is saying times 2. For nonprofits, you have your beneficiary segment and you have your donor segment, or those that are paying for your service to be delivered. So actually you need to be very good at what Lex is saying because you have to do it twice and do it very successfully to get that nonprofit award. So please keep your ears tuned on. You're doing this twice.
Thank you, Nelson. I'm assuming that you guys can do that translation in your heads, right? When I talk about customers, you read customers, you read beneficiaries and funders. All right. Thank you. So, Now I gotta answer the question, what is a business model then? What is a business model? Business model is a rationale of how the organization creates, delivers, and captures value. It's a concept, it's a abstraction, it's a set of ideas. And good news is, you can put them on a piece of paper. This definition, by the way, comes from Osterwalder, the creator of the business model canvas. This is probably the best definition. So the task you're about still, for most of you, and I would argue for all of you, is understanding that conceptual framework. What are the pieces that fit together so that your venture can create, deliver, and capture value? Yeah? All right. So how do we capture a business model? It's a tool for it. Good news, there's a tool. Business model canvas. All of you know about this. You've practiced it to varying degrees of success. The structure of it is important, though. It starts with two key elements that almost have to be dealt with together. Maybe if I'm forced to choose, the value proposition comes first. What is the value you bring to customers? What is the problem they have and the solution that you bring to that customer? Customer segments is equally important. You've got to know very clearly who it is you are providing value to. Now, there are 9 elements. They're not all equally important. The customer segments and the value propositions are by far the most important because they're foundational for everything else. You have to have that pinned down before it makes sense to spend a lot of time on the other elements. You've got to know who your customers are and you've got to know what the value is. Some of you have that pinned down nicely. Most of you do not. If I looked across the feedback, invariably the feedback said more customer development, focus on your market segments, get clearer on your value proposition. So tonight, don't walk out tonight without a clear plan to make sure that you know how to get the customer information you need to establish your segments and value proposition. Quickly, the other elements. Channels is how you deliver the product or service to the customer. How do you get it to them? Is it through a retail store? Do you deliver it in a truck? Do you do it over the web? Customer relationships, very important. How do you get, keep, and grow your customers? All of your marketing goes into in here. And then, of course, all of these things translate into revenue streams, that top line. Right? What is it you're going to deliver that people will pay for? Now, on the left side, then, are the operational elements. Who are your key partners? Mostly suppliers, but perhaps other people you're collaborating with. What are your key activities? What are the short list of things you have to do very well in your business to succeed? And then key resources, typically financial, often human resources, technology. What is it, the things that you have to have? You need a big building, you need a big factory. What are the things you have to be successful? Those things, and in fact all these others, then lead you to lay out the elements of your cost. Right? What are your main cost drivers? Is it people? Is it software? Is it raw materials? You have to import gold for the gold plating on your product. Right? Together, these all form the essential elements of a business model. This is an important way to look and see if the pieces all fit together, if you have a coherent whole, if there's something that hangs together to make a successful business. Now, what goes in these cells is cryptic, right? It's bullet points, it's short sentences. Do not put a paragraph into your business model canvas. This is a way to summarize it and get it onto one page so that a judge can look at it and say, aha, these guys have thought this through completely. All right. So, let me ask again, why do customer development? Here's my punchline. Okay, go ahead. Tommy, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's back on the business model. It seems like it's focusing on the strengths of your company, the ways that you create value. Should we be trying to address weaknesses or threats in the business model, or is that a separate conversation?
So, in your value proposition, you should talk about not only the value you bring to the customer, but the value you bring over and above what the competition is bringing. So, I'm not answering your question very directly, but I'm only off by a few degrees. You surely want to talk to the competition, how you're different, and how you're better. Much of that will go into the business plan, though. Is that responsive?
It's kind of implicit in the business model canvas because you're talking about your value propositions. So if you have no value propositions, then you have a lot of weaknesses, right? So that business model canvas is really about mapping out what you believe the world looks like and your guesses about how you're going to sell and make money. And if you have no value propositions, if you can't identify your customer segments, if you have no channels, you can't figure out who your partners are, that implies weakness.
Also, it's important to, so for example, in resources, right, you want to talk about, everybody talks about their team, right? So it's me and my roommate have started this business, and she does programming, and I'm in the business. Well, that's not going to be enough to make your team successful. So one of the things you want to recognize that you probably don't have all the resources you need to make the business go. Human resources is the best example. So you should definitely talk in your business plan about what other resources you need that you don't have, and when and how you're going to get them. Nobody expects you to have everything. It's not a full-blown business. It's just a search for a business model. But you need to show the judges that you have a plan, that you know the resources you need to acquire and the plan.
And one more point is that the business model canvas doesn't encompass all of the things that you need to figure out and know. There's things that are not contained in the business model canvas, like the economic, environment, regulatory, whatever. Lots of things that aren't in there. But at this point, we want you to focus on the business model canvas. And when you write your business plan, there's all these other things that you can bring into consideration.
So, here's my punchline. Here's the real answer to the question. At the current state of your venture, your business model is still mostly hypotheses. Again, I know there are some of you who are going to move beyond this, but you've read enough of your plans. You're still putting down a lot of things that are just guesses, and you've got to have the humility to recognize that. You need to transform these hypotheses into facts. And the way you do that, the way you do that transformation is through customer development. Okay? All right, enough motivation. Let's quickly go through how you do customer. Do a quick overview of this, and then we get down and do the workshop. So, it's conceptually simple. Specify your hypotheses. Write them down. Write them down on your business model canvas. I believe my target market is skiers, 18 to 25 years old, who have a job, have an income of over $40,000, and whose nose is cold. That might be one. Then go validate it. We're going to talk about how to do that. Validate it with face-to-face meetings. Surveys have their place, but they're not nearly as useful as sitting in a room across from that prospective customer, or that person in the customer segment, seeing their pupils dilate, seeing their body language, listening to the tone of their voice, understanding what kind of passion and emotion they have around the problem and around your solution. It's very important to do it face-to-face. That's how you validate the hypotheses in your business model. And you iterate. Do it over and over again. They're going to be wrong a lot. You've got to be humble enough and open-minded enough to know when they're telling you that your hypotheses are wrong. And then you just change them. Because all they are is a bullet on a piece of paper right now, right? You haven't invested a lot in developing the program, right? And you iterate often. Sometimes you do a big iteration, which is called a pivot. And you just change direction in a big way. But that's the general process. In terms of the flow of the conversation, repeat after me. People, problems, solutions.
People, problems, solutions.
That's the way the conversation flows. You do not start with your solution. You start with who they are, what their life is like, what makes them tick, what they read, what they have for supper, what their kids do after school. You want to find out about them as a person. That conversation naturally migrates, and there's some overlap, into their problems. What are the problems they're having? And it's not every problem, obviously. You want to guide them, but very gently, leading the witness, into the problems that you're interested in. But you want them to talk about the problem next, and only after they've talked about that problem in some depth do you then glide into the solution. Yeah? And you'll see that over and over again when we talk about how to do these interviews. Start with that person, get them talking about themselves, then their problem, and then talk about perspective. Okay. All right. Tactically, how do you do this? Getting the interview can be tough. Right? It's especially if it's a business-to-business play. It might be hard to get in touch with the CIO of AT&T, but maybe you need to, right? So, use your network. Start with your friends and families. Ask everybody you know for an introduction. Ask Jim Chung for an introduction. He knows everybody. He knows everybody. Use the affinity networks that are available. Go to a meetup. Go to a DC Tech meetup. Everybody been to the DC Tech meetup at least once? Once a month they meet with 600 people there. They do an open mic session where people ask, what do you need? I need a programmer, I need a business development person, and then they network, which is to say they train. But go and meet these folks and make connections, right? And then, all the traditional networking events, right? Go to the business school that does all these things. Go to the networking events. If you have to do cold calls, it's not impossible. The hit rate can be low, and it can be you have to have a thick skin. But you can go through the phone book. You can go through directories. You can go on the street. Many of you have consumer products. Go out to Cocoa Plaza and talk to students. Many of you have applications for which there are students in your target market. They'll give you feedback. LinkedIn is really a very good way to do this. Right? If you haven't gone to LinkedIn, we talked about this at some of the workshops. First of all, link to me, link to Melody, and link to Jim. If you haven't done that, do that immediately, because that explodes your network right there. The connections piece. Anybody familiar with this? Maybe if we have to, we'll spend some time. You go to LinkedIn, you hit connections as well on the top. It then brings down a menu of choices for how you can connect to people. The best way to do it for you guys is through GW. So pick a university, go down and type in George Washington University. Bang! All the people who are alums on campus who know something about entrepreneurship will leap out at you.
Over 200,000 people are GW alums.
So that's a great resource. That's how you start on Ground Zero. Now, tactically, here are some tips. We'll go through these quickly. Before the interview, preparation is important. Right? Think about the goals and what you're trying to achieve. Be really clear about what hypothesis you're testing. Right? Meet face-to-face. I've told you why I think that's important. Interview one person at a time. So not a team of people, not a class. Get them one of them in a room. Really want to be absorbing what that one person has to tell. It takes a lot of effort. And make an easy ask. The best ask, and I've told you, I tell you this, I'm from GW. I'm in the business plan competition. I want 10 minutes to talk to you about some of my ideas. I'm doing a project for school. Can I talk to you for a few minutes? It's easy. It's tougher for people outside. GW alums especially are really interested in helping GW students. Play that student card. It'll help you get in. And make an easy ask. I just need 10 minutes of your time. Rarely do these interviews get limited to 10 minutes. They get going, they get talking, you get half an hour, you get 10 minutes. Ask for 10 minutes, ask for 15 minutes, maybe. All right. During the interview, when you're in there, talk about behavior, and don't ask for feedback. This is, again, people, problems, and solutions. Focus on behavior, not about speculation and feelings. So, don't ask people if they're healthy eaters. Nobody will say to you, I'm not a healthy eater. Ask them what they had for breakfast yesterday. Ask them what they had for dinner last night. Ask them about behaviors that they can do. And then you make the judgment of whether or not they're healthy eaters. Don't ask about feelings or speculation. Number 3 is probably most important. Why is it 3 on the list, you say? Be receptive to painful feedback. If somebody tells you your baby is ugly, you want to listen hard and understand that. Again, you're talking to people who are in your target market segment. You want to be listening. Don't argue with them. Listen to the feedback and be open to the possibility that one of your hypotheses is wrong. Disarm their politeness. A good way to start the interview is to say, you're not helping me if you're too polite. I need honest feedback. You can't hurt my feelings. The worst thing you can do to me is be too nice to me. Tell me the truth. Usually works. Open-ended questions. Yes, no questions don't go anywhere. You want them to be expansive. You want them to bring out ideas that you didn't think of. So you want to be listening to them. You're in listen mode. The right kind of conversation is 80% them, 20% you talking. Right? You're there to gather information, not to disseminate information. Let the conversation flow. Talk to up front. You want to know what hypotheses you're testing. You want to have a plan, but you want to also be able to let the conversation go off in unexpected directions. especially if there are new and unexpected lines of inquiry. If they tell you that the problem you thought was not one, but there is one, the problem they have that is really important, go with it, follow it. That's gold, that's what you want. Parroting back is a nice way to make sure you understand, and kind of active listening. If they say something, say, what I heard you say was, you need an application that'll help me find pizza on a Saturday night when I'm really hungry. Is that what you said? I'm being silly, but you get the idea. The last question I always ask is, can you recommend somebody else I should talk to? Use each interaction as a chance to grow your network. Usually you can get one or two more, right? You know how the powers of two go, right? So if you get one, gives you two, gives you four, gives you eight. You can grow your network just by doing it. Ma'am.
A important question that Cindy Alvarez suggests in her book about lean customer development, I think it's the title of the book, is if you could wave a magic wand and change anything about how you do X, what would you want to change? You're not asking them to come up with a solution, you're asking them what is really bothering you about how you do X currently. Because that will give you a good, it kind of opens them up a little bit. It's kind of a silly question, but it also helps them target in on what is it that really bothers them about this area of activity or need that you're trying to target.
Thank you. All right, afterwards, spend some time immediately afterwards digesting what you heard, looking for patterns, looking for insights. How was this conversation different from the last one? How was it different from the last 10 years? Write up your notes while they're fresh. Take a few minutes and write down your notes. If you're doing this well, you're going to do scores. You're going to do hundreds of these things, and you'll forget. You need to have notes. Good way to do that is also to bring a person with you. Do 2-on-1. Have somebody who's managing the interview and somebody who's just taking notes during the interviews. And that's all right.
Can I make a couple points?
Sure.
So
Please.
one thing you want to make sure is that you're casting the net wide. So you see there, look for patterns. If you are only interviewing a small handful of people, you can't see patterns, right? You see patterns when you have large ends. So we want you to go out and try to talk to as many people as possible. Another thing is that you want to be able to talk to people who aren't necessarily your mom or your dad, who are going to tell you what you want to hear because they love you, right? So you want to talk to people. The further removed, ironically, the further removed you are from your circle of influence, the more honest the feedback becomes. So you want to try to go as far as possible outside your sphere of influence to get people good feedback.
Tyler.
So, when do we know when there's the diminishing marginal returns to more interviews? A lot of things I'm sure all of us are doing, and after the 101st or the 1001st, or is it just self-evident once you start hearing the same answers, or are we trying to do this until like the stats actually become significant and trying to compute?
You know, it's not truly scientific. We don't have control groups and this kind of thing. But you'll start recognizing the same patterns over and over, and then there's a decreasing marginal utility to each new interview, right? That's when you start realizing that, okay, I've done 100 interviews, and now I'm starting to see the patterns, and I'm just getting repeated answers. That's probably the time where you say, okay, I'm pretty confident now that this business model canvas is going to work. Let's go forward with a minimum viable product. Get that out there, and then you start the process over again. See what you were right and wrong about when you get that minimum viable product out into the hands of customers.
And what I've seen from coaching is that at 10 interviews, you might feel pretty certain because you can keep confirming your initial hypotheses. At 30, you might feel really lost because you're getting a lot of conflicting data. And then when you start approaching 100, then you start to see very clear patterns, and maybe there's sub-segments you didn't see before, or a new problem that you didn't notice. So if you start getting frustrated around 30, from what I've seen, that's probably pretty much on par for what happens when you actually start doing this process.
Yeah, we've worked with hundreds of teams through this approach, so what we found is statistically, it looks like around the first 20 interviews you guys will do will be crappy. Because they're probably with people who are close to you, you're not used to it, you're not asking the right questions, etc. So around 20, those are practice. Your next 20, you start getting some real answers, and maybe around 80 is when you start getting real insights. And then 100 is when you're kind of like, okay, I think I've started hearing the same things over again, so I'm ready to launch.
Is this a requirement for the business?
No. This is what you should be doing going forward. You have 1 month right now to be able to get your business plan
Wait a minute, jobs, I mean, a month, you want us to do 100 interviews?
No, we're not expecting that. We're not expecting that. This is what we're saying you should do if you're really gonna launch this company, if you're serious, before you put some significant resources
So we
behind
could
it.
give you a plan for how we intend to do this, but we don't have to do it before March 3rd, do we?
You can do a lot of interviews between now and the time your business plan is due.
How many can you do? How many can you do between the next one?
I have 3 grant proposals due by February 28th. I mean, no, I mean, I'm out, but I just had no idea we were supposed to.
Can you do one or two 15-minute interviews a day? I mean, there's no requirement. You can do 0 and still advance forward. It depends on how everybody else is doing as well. So you're going to be competitive.
We have no interviews.
You will get dinged if you have no interviews.
Yeah.
But if you had 10, you might be okay.
So when showing your product, what kind of tips can you give? Just like, here it is, try it out, or just, I guess, like, what's the best way to like say it to them, or
You mean
I don't know
after
if there's
you've
like
done
any
people
no-nos for
and problems?
Yeah.
So, I think if you've had a conversation has now gotten to, I have a real problem, and it's the problem you thought. Could I ask you to react to some possible solutions? Take a look at this.
If you've got a prototype, which you
Yeah.
do, give it to them and
Give
see.
it to them.
Yeah, see if their eyes light up. If they say, "Hey, can I buy this from you right now?" You know, that's great feedback.
If they take it and refuse to give it back, it's actually good.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's, Jim's right, you've got prototype. Ma'am?
Curious to know the difference in, like, if you are interviewing people either on the street or at an event where their primary purpose is not to talk to you, but something else, and they happen to give you time because you say you're a student. So how does this interview structure change when it's not a matter of we've set up and arranged to have this interview and I have the designated time, but literally I'm catching you in the midst of your day?
Yeah. It doesn't change very much. In fact, it's to your advantage, right? I mean, one of the things nice about being in DC, there's always a convention or two going on here. Sometimes you can get like 100 people who are your target market are all in the, in the convention center. So you go there with a clipboard and get them all in a day. It's always the same, but it's always different, right? The structure is the same. You're going to ask them for 10 minutes of their time, get them on the coffee break. Can I ask you about working on a project for school? Can I get some ideas from you? What do you do for a living? Are you in the waste treatment industry? I have a friend who works he runs a convention every year. It's called the World of Concrete. It's the most boring thing in the world. It's like 10,000 people there last week. But if you're in the concrete business, that's the place you want to go to do your customer discovery. So can I ask you a few questions? It's the same. In fact, it's better if you get them in a place where that's where.
A nice point of feedback is if you're catching those people in the middle of the day, and you get to the point where you can actually get to the point where you can tell them what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and they give you more time, that shows you that you've addressed the problem that matters. If every person you talk to hears what your problem, the problem you're trying to solve is, and they don't want to give you any time, that also tells you something.
And also when you say I'm a student at, say this is the problem I'm trying to solve, and I'm trying to come up with some ideas of how I can address that as a business, as a nonprofit. You don't start with, my name is Melanie, I'm a student at GW, and I have this solution thing, and let me tell you about my solution, or my service or my product. So start with the problem that you want to solve, and then the second phase of the interview can go into a prototype. And a prototype doesn't have to be a product. It can be, you can talk to me more about different prototypes, and if we're going to discuss it right now, but it can be a simple thing on a paper, a little walkthrough, a little narrative. This is my prototype. You walk into my cafe I'm launching, and this is how you're going to interact with the people, and this is the whole experience. What do you think of it? You don't try to sell it to them. You just try to say, what do you think of this? And you take notes of all the things that they are concerned about, and that's kind of the solution phase that can flow into the same interview. But you start with, this is the problem, and then maybe flow into the solution after. So,
That's the end of the prepared remarks. Do we want to spend any more questions for the general group? If not, we should queue up and start to do some. Last call for questions. So let's do this. Let's build a startup.
I think you have a question for her.
Oh, sorry.
Is this information gonna be available in all your video recordings?
Yes.
The slides? Will they be posted online or?
Yes, yes. I will be recording it. We'll put it on the website. It won't be tomorrow, but I'll get it. All right, we're done. Thank you very much.